This article could certainly be improved. For one, I think if the author focused on one aspect of of their hypothesis, it would have been stronger. I think because it's such a broad statement to make, and the hypothesis is manyfold, as I mentioned earlier. It was difficult to follow which finding carried the most weight. And I also thought that if the author used more narratives to support their claim that there's an inherent multicultural skill set that psychologists have in a school setting, and that's an important skill set that could be beneficial to schools. I thought if there was more surveys done or interview questions to school members or even psychologists themselves, that would have made this article and this study stronger. There were certainly many strengths to this methodology. I really liked how the author framed the gifted paradigm in essentially three parts. One was the gifted child paradigm, and this positions giftedness as an inherent trait. The talent development paradigm, which emphasizes the identification and cultivation of domain specific advanced potential, and differentiation paradigm, which asserts that gifted services should be available in response to a clear academic need. These are very strong. These are very strong. This is a very strong framework, and I'd like to see more discussion on these particular points. I do agree with the author's conclusion, the findings, and I'll tell you why. And I'll start by discussing each one individually. So the first finding is that students who are white are consistently over-identified when compared to CLED students. Now, I think quantitatively, it's probably easy to agree with that finding. However, what the author did present was that there was a comparison of students, of CLED students and white students, and white students were more than 2.5 times likely to be admitted into a gifted program, even when all other factors were controlled, such as grades, test scores, and so on. So I thought that was an interesting finding. The second finding, which I also find is very interesting, is that one basically 5 states in the United States have pre-service teacher coursework in giftedness. So what that means is there's not a lot of coursework out there, or there's not states aren't requiring teachers to be trained in gifted programming. So that leaves open the opportunity for teachers to fall back into stereotypes about giftedness and rely on those biases instead of the coursework that the states should require. 5 states require this of their pre-service teachers, but gifted programs are national. The third finding is that many teachers believe differentiated instruction for gifted learners was inconvenient and unnecessary. So there's certainly a thinking that gifted learners should exceed and excel in all all academic settings, and differentiated instruction is not necessary for them. As a special ed teacher, I'm constantly differentiating material for students to meet them where they are. Likewise, I would imagine for gifted learners. If teachers aren't differentiating instruction for gifted learners, that just begs the question, why do we have gifted programming? The fourth point is that many teachers maintain a power evasive mentality associated with colorblindness, and this undermines concerted efforts at narrowing access and achievement gaps. So this made me think of the whole question of equitable versus equal. This is a concept that I first encountered, I think it was my first class studying to become a special education teacher. So it's an interesting concept because equal and equitable are two completely different concepts. Equal is clearly giving everyone the same tools they need in a given situation. Equitable means that for some students, you may need to give more tools available because you are controlling for other factors such as socioeconomic status, prior access to education. You're controlling for a lot of the societal problems that may exist and may have affected this learner previously. So equitable is not equal. Another finding is that teachers maintain a colorblind racial attitude, and they may be aware of multicultural strategies but feel a lack of efficacy in implementing them successfully. So I believe, most teachers, especially ones who work in highly concentrated districts such as MPS, where the population is mostly African American students, or Title I schools, I believe that the teachers are aware that there's a multicultural aspect to that should be addressed for these learners in order for them to be successful. However, I do believe that the limited teacher training in multiculturalism or cultural responsive teaching, CRT, creates a dynamic for the teachers where we aren't being as effective as we can with multicultural learners. And finally, the school psychologists are in the best position to help teachers because they are well versed in multiculturalism. This finding was not well supported in this article. And I say this because it almost assumes its conclusion. School psychologists are very important in the process of identifying gifted learners. They're important in the process of identifying and of identifying special education learners. However, to presume that school psychologists are well versed in multiculturalism and isn't well supported. School psychologists are amazing stakeholders in education, and I don't know what it takes to be a psychologist, a school psychologist. I would imagine that they are aware of different types of learners. They're aware of all of the disability categories. They're aware of child development. I would imagine they're aware of any any most factors that may affect a child's social development or academic development. I'd imagine all of those things. Um, I guess the question is what they're learning outside of the realm of child development and in some cases maybe medicine. Why aren't teachers learning those same things? So that supports that supports the point that there is still a lack of multicultural training within our pre-service teacher programs, um, which would address a lot of the deficits that we still have, and that shows itself in the disproportionality of gifted learners um, in most of our districts across the country. So, how would I generalize the study's findings? I think it certainly can be generalized to my district of MPS. Um, the gifted programmings are underrepresented with African American students, CLED students. The numbers quantitatively you can see. So in the real world, I think more coursework, required coursework, not just PDs, but maybe required classes, maybe a partnership with a university where teachers can actually study African American history from a certain period of time on forward, from from a college perspective, or address some of the sociology um, behind this country as well. Could probably be beneficial, and ultimately it would impact and for in a positive way what teachers do in the classroom. Thank you.